Whether you absolutely loved or felt like you missed out on watching the epic Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl run behind the Legion of Boom, lay your eerie head to rest because you're going to absolutely love not missing the 2023 Oklahoma State epic run behind the Legion of Boone.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Of course, you know we're available on every single podcasting platform, as well as visually on YouTube. You can find me personally on Twitter at AllDayOState. Yes, sir, the Legion of Boone. When you look at that Seattle Seahawks defense, the reason they were called the Legion of Boom is because they were big, they were physical, they were mean, they were not afraid to lay the wood, and they had some athletic ability to kind of take over the wide receiver's ability to get over top. And if you can't get over top, it's very difficult to stretch the field vertically. If you can't stretch the field vertically, you kind of become one-dimensional. We saw that last year with Oklahoma State. Nobody respected our run game. Nobody needed to. So a lot of defense started dropping 8 men in the box against us in the latter half of the season, and we saw how that panned out. The Seattle Seahawks were so good defensively that it forced teams to reinvent their game plan coming into it. And we got to watch a couple of Cowboys and Russel Okung and Kevin Williams win a Super Bowl with that very team. So when you look at our defense right now, and you look at the Seattle Seahawks defense when they went on their 2013, 2014 epic runs, I see some similarities, right? And it's not just talking about some of the intangible stuff. Some of the intangible stuff, obviously, you know, it's very important to the whole dichotomy of the situation, right? But when you think of those guys, who do you think of? You think of Cam Chancellor? You think of KJ Wright? You think of Bobby Wagner? Right? You think of Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman? And when you look at the Oklahoma State roster, you understand what is possible. Guys, Pete Carroll was very, very ahead of his time in taking these 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" corners and making them legitimate corners. He did the same thing with Trey Flowers after the Legion of Boom, like very shortly after, and he wanted to continue that trend. So they took an Oklahoma State safety in Trey Flowers, turned him into a starting cornerback, and he started for years. He recently obviously got traded, and he's still in the NFL. He's still carving out a nice little role for himself with the Cincinnati Bengals. But nonetheless, when you look at that roster and you look at Oklahoma State's roster right now, there are similarities. This isn't crazy talk, right? So the Legion of Boom was so successful because they could be in press man coverage on the outside all day, every day, and dare you to beat them. And more often than not, you couldn't. But if you could beat them, you paid the ultimate price for it once you caught the ball. Now, some of the things have changed as far as the physicality. Because if you run into a scenario like we used to with Calvin Bundage, when you play so fast and so furious that you get flagrant flags and you get penalties and you're out for halves and out for the first two halves of the next game, it becomes very precarious to be able to keep the two deep in the same scenario. But behind Richard Sherman and Byron Maxwell and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, the guys behind them were like Jeremy Lane, 6 foot 190, Marcus Burley, 6'10", 190. Thorold Simon, 6'2", 205. Deshaun Sheed, 6'1", 225. Jerron Johnson, 6'5", 220. And when you look at the Oklahoma State roster, all right, we're talking about DBs, right? We already know that Cameron Epps can play corner because we've seen him do it. We know he can do it. He's 6'3", 200. But even if you didn't have Cam Epps, you want to go with Cam Smith. He's 6'2", 200. Right? Byron Maxwell, good comp, probably. Corey Black, 6 foot, 190. Guys, RJ Lester's over 6 foot. DJ McKinney's over 6 foot. Deshaun Buckner's over 6 foot. Kenneth Harris is over 6 foot. DeKelvin Beeman and Jordan Reagan. Those guys are all over 6 foot, and most of them are at or over the 200-pound range. This is our defensive back. Our defensive back room is like that. Right? If you want to go to the defensive line, that's fine. When you look at somebody like Oklahoma State Cowboy Kevin Williams, 6'5", 311, pretty impressive. Well, isn't Justin Kirkland 6'4", 350? I think so. Isn't his backup going to be equally comparable? Whether it be Colin Clay at 6'3", 210, or Aiden Kelly at 6'2", 295, or A.J. Ridner at 6'1", 300. I mean, Michael Bennett, defensive end, 6'4", 275. You tell me, how many 6'4" defensive ends do we have? 8, 7? How many defensive ends do we have that are over 275? 5, 6 defensive ends. And even the backup nose tackle, Jordan Hill, 6'1", 300. It ain't the same as Colin Clay. It ain't the same as Aiden Kelly. It ain't the same as A.J. Ridner. It ain't even the same as Xavier Rawls. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Now, when you have Russel Okung on your offensive line and you get to have Marshawn Lynch be a running back, that does sweeten the pot a decent amount, right? I'm aware of that. But if you just keep going layers deep on this, like even the linebackers, we had a show yesterday about the linebackers. And yes, I 100% believe that our linebacker room is in fact better than USC's. But again, the linebacker room, right? The guys we were talking about, all right, KJ Wright, Bobby Wagner, 6 foot, 240. His backup, Malcolm Swiss, 6 foot, 230. Bobby Wagner's backup was Brock Coyle, 6'1", 235. Bobby Wagner also had to compete with Kevin Pierre-Louis coming out of the draft. And then obviously you had KJ Wright at 6'4", 245. Guys, isn't Justin Wright? Isn't he a 6'2", 240? Isn't Xavier Benson 6'2", 230? Isn't Jeff Robertson 6'1", 230? Yes. The answer to all of these questions is yes. So I didn't start the Legion of Boone thing. I wish I could take credit for that. I saw it, I don't know, a couple months back on Twitter. It was possibly a tongue-in-cheek type of comment. But the more you're seeing out of this fall camp, the more insane it appears to look. This is probably the most undervalued Oklahoma State team, and we like it this way. We prefer it this way. Y'all know, after everything that happened last season in the locker room, the way we handled injuries, all that fun jazz, everything needed to take a drastic turn, like a 180-degree turn from what it was last year to this year for us to be successful. And a lot of us probably thought that it should have started with some guys losing their jobs, some of the coordinators. And if that was your assumption, you'd have been right. You'd have been fair. But that's not what Gundy did. Gundy backed himself in a corner and said, no. I don't need to change much. I don't need to fire anybody. I just need to adjust some stuff. I need to tweak some stuff. I created this Cowboy culture. I need to be the one to kind of get it steered back in the right direction. And everything you're hearing, seeing, reading, and everybody that you're able to talk to right now in the locker room, on the staff, they're saying that everything has changed. And we've talked about Gundy's not calling guys by their numbers anymore, and he's taking time during practice to get to know them a little bit better, learn a little bit more about their family life and upbringing, things of that nature. It is beneficial. It is helpful. It does help with recruiting. Just like we talked about Mason Cobb left because there's not a good path to linebacker in the NFL at Oklahoma State. That's a bold-faced lie. He also left because the guys at Oklahoma State weren't pushing him enough. Okay, bet money. Let's see what Xavier Benson, Justin Wright, and Colin freaking Oliver do this season. Let's see what this crazy, insane safety room is able to do. Kendal Daniels, 6'4", 225 pounds, running a 4.4 40. He could play it on the Legion of Boone. Colin Oliver, definitely at 6'2", 235. Could he have played on Legion of Boom? Yes, which is precisely why this team this year should be used to be the new focal point of what the standard is at Oklahoma State moving into the new Big 12. This season should be massive. It shouldn't just be about the schedule. It should be about the 2D. It should be about the talent. And it should be middle finger to everybody in the country that thought that Oklahoma State was going to go backwards, to every player in the country that thought coming to Oklahoma State was not a good idea. For all of them, that's what this season's for, to me, in my opinion. Guys, I can't tell you. Okay, no, I think I can say, legitimately speaking, if I were to go back to probably 2017, 2018, is a comparable time as to how excited I've been. I mean, you guys know how crazy excited I am, but some people just thought I was crazy. Period. But just ask yourself, if this is true, if this happens, if this season is that epic, do you want to say that you missed out on it? Right? Do you want to be talking to your kids and your grandkids at some point in time in life and saying, oh, you remember that epic run we made in 2023? I could have been there. I should have been there. I'm telling you, let's get there. But before we jump into segment number 2, talking about some 5 bold predictions coming out of Oklahoma State University, I do have to let everybody out here know that today our sponsor is going to be Betterhelp. Betterhelp is required to be able to put you in a position that they can be extremely advantageous and helpful for you. The privacy, the confidentiality, the security, the anonymity, HIPAA, all of that stuff is very beneficial to you and your health. So Betterhelp is going to help you with all of the disclosures and everything that you need in life to help you. And that's the thing. If you're not helping yourself, you can't expect somebody else to look at you and look to be a voice of reason. BetterHelp is here to help you with that. So go there now, betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege, and get your way back to being your best self. Again, that is betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege. There's no need in being disgruntled. There's no need in being down. Life will hit you in the mouth, but you got to be prepared to hit it back. BetterHelp will help you all do that. All right, so let's roll into this next segment here. So let me get my phone. I was reading an article earlier, and I wanted to kind of talk about it. So shout out to Marshall Scott with pistols firing. But he was talking about 5 predictions for the 2023 Oklahoma State football season. And, I just kind of wanted to take a gander at them and go over them here real quick. Number 1, good. You nailed it. I think this is a winner. He has Kendal Daniels earns All-American. Not only should that happen, but it should be viewed as somewhat disrespectful that he's not on any real list coming into this season. Obviously, that'll change if he has the type of productivity that we think he's going to have. But yeah, I thought it was pretty disrespectful. I love Bryn Presley. I think BP's a phenomenal slot receiver, probably one of the best in the country. But I would argue that Kendal Daniels is more deserving of some of the preseason accolades. BP's been doing it for a long time. I get it. I'm with him. I'm behind him. I just think KD probably should have got a little bit more love here. All right, number 2, he has 2 Oklahoma State running backs will outrush the leading rusher from 2022. I mean, duh. We love Dom. I love Dom. But Dominic Richardson should not have been our starting running back last season at all. Almost ever. Week 2, week 3, you should know by then that, man, we love Dom, but the dude can't see. Maybe he needs eyeglasses. Maybe he needs surgery. I don't know. I don't know how you teach somebody to get better vision to see open field. Either you see it or you don't. I mean, you can train your eyes right? You can have a little bit more discipline. But, I mean, he's a good running back, but he's not going to break anything. So outproducing our rushing totals from last year is pretty simple. I think Gundy by himself could possibly get close to that. So it's I don't know. Yeah, it's a take. It's a take. Not bad. Number 3, a league newcomer beats the Pokes. Yeah, this one I go back and forth on. I mean, there's only a couple of us in the Big 12 that got all 4 newbies. Houston is just not ready, and they're going to be super banged up that late in the season. I think the same is going to be said about UCF. UCF they're making some waves, and everybody knew they kind of would once they got into the big boy platform. And you're seeing the recruiting right now. They're big boy recruiting, so they're not too far away. But again, we get 3 of these teams literally the last few weeks of the season. So depth is something that we have been working on for a long time. Depth is something that was used as an excuse last year as far as lack of depth. And to some degree, you did see that out on the field, right? But if you don't have the depth and you know you're going to get banged up because the Big 12 is a war of attrition, then you're too deep at the end of the season's kind of important. So I don't see UCF and Houston having the 2 deep to be able to hold us off. Now, Cincinnati, it's homecoming. Usually your homecoming, it's not only a big game, but it's a game that everybody shows up for. And if you haven't been to Oklahoma State's homecoming, you are missing out. You don't even got to go to the game. Yeah, you could literally just do all of the walk around stuff, see the homecoming, and then you can camp out, tailgate. You don't even got to go inside the stadium. It's just that amazing of a homecoming that we put on. So with everything that is encompassing in homecoming and everything that comes with it, I don't see us losing that game either. Then we get to BYU. The Cougars are grown men. And we've had this talk. Their average age is like 26 years old on the roster, 27, something like that. So these dudes are consummate young men. They're not young men. They're men. They're real men. Their cerebral cortex has developed for the most part. They get it. They understand it. Waking up in the morning is easy. Getting to your physical therapy and getting taped up and iced up, it's easy. I mean, that stuff sucks. I used to hide from the ice bath. I ain't gonna lie to you. I used to try to sneak out of the building in college so I didn't have to do certain things. But you can't do that in Stillwater right now. You can't do that at Oklahoma State. I think Brian Nardo is bringing more than just the knowledge, more than just the energy. He's also bringing, ironically enough, some discipline. He's a young dude, a very young dude. He doesn't act like it. He doesn't coach like it. He doesn't get a hold of these young men like it. And that's the thing is, I had this conversation with Jeremy Smith earlier via Twitter. There is such a lack of fundamental discipline and teaching etiquette in youth football that by the time they get to high school, and I deal with it. I'm dealing with it right now. You have to fix so many bad habits that it's so infuriating. Like it makes you scratch your head. And it makes you wonder, what have they been doing? What have they been teaching? Like, what is happening? If a kid is 16 years old and he's been playing ball for 8, 9, 10 years, we shouldn't have to be, I don't know, unboxing things to figure it out and fix it now. Luckily, when they are at this age, they're pretty malleable in understanding how to pick it up. But you can know everything about football and not be a good coach. You could play 20 years in the NFL and not be good at breaking things down to kids, to young men. It's one thing to know it all. It's another thing to be able to teach it, right? And I think I'm a perfect example of those who can't teach, right? But that's lacking. That's lacking in today's game. I'm so sorry to get sidetracked there. But yeah, I don't know. that we're going to lose. I don't know, man. But BYU, that's hard. They're too deep. Is fine. Into the season, last game of the year, I could see us dropping that one. I could see that. All right. Number 4, Alan Bowman starts every game. Nope. Ain't gonna happen, Captain. Not just because the injury thing, but people are about to visually see the jump that Garrett Rangel's made. That's just it. Garrett Rangel will play football. And it won't just be because Alan Bowman gets hurt. But we all know, no matter who the starter is, there's a high probability that they're going to get dinged up. There's a high probability that you're going to see the backup no matter what. And I'm not talking about blowout W's. I'm talking about real, meaningful, I need you right here, right now style of snaps. Garrett Rangel has gotten so much better. I know I keep saying it, and people think that I'm just holding Garrett Rangel's drop strap all over America. We'll see. You will see. I'm excited. But no, Alan Bowman, he's good, right? He makes throws that not very many people in America can. But when the bullets are flying hot and heavy, Garrett Rangel is just more consistent. I would almost say more reliable. So it is what it is. He's going to play. So I don't jump on that take. Number 5, the non-conference will be uncomfortable. This I do actually agree with, right? There was a Locked On Sooners guy, John, was talking about OU's needing to go undefeated because of the lack of strength of schedule. I mean, A, I think that's a ridiculous statement. But B, if you look at their non-con, I mean, I kind of get it. But if you look at our non-con just from a bird's eye view, you're going to think the same thing. Miss Central Arkansas, that's barely a football team. That's what most people are going to think nationally. Although they do have a few NFL level type of guys, which we're going to get to in our Central Arkansas breakdown. But yeah, it is very interesting to think that South Alabama can beat us, but they can. South Alabama, like the talk is legitimate. They are loaded with former D1 transfers, a decent amount of them that actually started as well. So it's kind of weird. I don't know how. I do not know how South Alabama was able to pull this off, but they did. And they're not going to be easy to beat. We should definitely win the game. I would say that we win by anywhere from 10, 14, right around that range. We'll win the game, but it will be close. They are good. They have a lot of talent. I don't know how they got it all, but they do. They got it. It is what it is. South Alabama is receiving way more votes in the AP Top 25 than we are. Like we got 0 for the first time since 2008. They have a few votes for the AP Top 25. That's how legitimate they are. We could lose that game. Arizona State, they're in a somewhat comparable position as us in regards to turnover, a decent amount of turnover, and having to bring in 20 some odd transfers. But the difference is they don't have the continuity in the coaching staff. They don't have the continuity and reliability in some of the upperclassmen that are going to be able to step up and take this leadership style of role. It's not going to be just the coaches. This year, we're going to be managed by our own dudes, which you have to have that. And last year, it started that way. The season started that way. But by week 3, it was not going the right way. It was tilting the other direction. And when you lose the locker room in the season, you cannot get it back 99.9% of the time. It is what it is. So as long as we carry this through the season, we're going to be beyond fine. But again, people say, Cody, you're just watching highlights and clips and bits of film. Like, you have no idea how good we're going to be. Maybe not. But I know what it looked like last year. And it was, compared to what you see now, it was horrendous. That's just what it is. So is it that our offense and defense are both so average that they make each other look good at times or bad at times? Or is it that they actually got better? Or is it that this defense could be better than 2021? I know that's crazy to think of. And this will kind of roll into segment number 3 right off the top. So, I was talking to somebody the other day that was listening to our buddy, our old pal, Coach Pat. And we all know that coach gets a little in his feathers, ruffled up here and there about Oklahoma State. Pat Jones doesn't typically say a lot of glowingly great things about us. I don't know if it's because he's butthurt or something happened or he doesn't love Gundy. I don't know what it is, but Pat Jones puts down OSU, not as much as Jim Traber, but a decent amount, right? And I don't get it. But Pat Jones even said he was at practice the other day, and this defense might be better than 2021. And he ain't wrong. Like, I know that some people think I'm crazy, but the secrets aren't so secret anymore. The competition between the quarterbacks is real. It has been real for months. Nobody wants to believe it. Well, now you're seeing some quote-unquote reputable journalists come out with it. And that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. I am over the moon for how this season can be. But all in all, man, I think this is a good article. I think it was a very good article. Good job, Marshall Scott. And if you noticed, Barry Trammell and Jenny Carlson are no longer with the Oklahoman. Have you noticed some of the stuff that some of the radio stations do have lost a little bit of juice, have lost a little bit of steam, have lost a little bit of popularity? And the irony of it all is there's still some universities that like to pretend that podcasting is not real, it's not legitimate, it doesn't matter, it's insignificant. When the numbers don't support that. I'm not talking about our numbers, I'm saying in general. Radio subscriptions are going down, XM subscriptions are going down, podcast subscriptions are going up. This is the new way of the world. This is the new lay of the land, which is crazy because when I entertained getting this job, my first thought was, probably not. There's so many podcasts and there's so many YouTube channels and there's so many, people that do stuff for Spotify and Apple and all that. Like originally, I didn't think it was worth the squeeze because I thought podcasting had been around for long enough and it was too saturated of a market. I was wrong. I'm glad that I was wrong. I'm very happy to see that the country is moving more into this space because people are starting to realize that if you know what you're doing, you know what you're talking about, you know how to put it on paper, then you don't have to go to college for 5-6 years to do it. You don't have to have journalism degrees. You don't have to have a bunch of classes that teach you what to do, how to stay. I have had zero. I know nothing. What I do know is I love Oklahoma State. I love the Big 12. I'm obsessed with film. And I love taking notes, and statistics are my BFF, right? Stats are my boo thing. And then I'm able to put it all together. And I hope that we continue to put together a good package. I had to move the Seth Duckworth show. My daughter's 15th birthday is today, and we have a matinee. I'm talking back-to-back movies. It's what she wants to do. I'm all for it. I'm about it. It's better than buying a car, so I'm going to embrace the 15-year-old moment and be petrified of the 16-year-old moment. All right, y'all. I think that's all we're going to have for this one. Oh, you know what? I forgot to cover kickers, punters, special teams, all that fun jazz. You know what? I'll save that, right? I'll save that. But we are going to talk about it. There is some news that's come out of it recently. So, stay tuned for that. Other than that, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. And thank you very much for tuning in today to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, but you choose to be here. Later, taters.